model is speaking out after her ex-boyfriend, who pretended to be a professional photographer to trick her into a relationship, punched her, threw a glass at her head, and left her covered in blood on her mother's doorstep. Ring doorbell footage captured the moment. Christopher Worrall received a suspended sentence. And Rachel Bambrough wants every woman watching this to hear her story. Here is everything she said. Rachel Bambrough was 28 years old when a man named Christopher Worrall first slid into her social media messages. He told her he had seen her modeling work online and wanted to do a professional photo shoot with her. What Rachel did not know, what she could not have known, was that Worrall had bought the camera that very same day. He was not a photographer. He was a man who had identified a way to get close to her. Little did I know, he'd only bought the camera that day, Rachel said. After the shoot, he asked her for a drink. A few dates followed, and before long, they were in a relationship. A relationship that would last 3 years and end in violence. Looking back, Rachel can identify the warning signs she missed. Worrall worked as an MOT tester at a garage. He had a history of violence, not toward Rachel initially, but toward others. She recalled a night when police knocked on her door in the middle of the night looking for him. She lied. She said she didn't know him. She covered for him. When he assaulted someone else, a photographer who had taken pictures of Rachel, driven by jealousy, she stayed. I should have seen it coming, she said. But I was just blinded by love. She described herself before the relationship as the most outgoing, confident person you could meet, someone who took no nonsense from anyone. I was the last person who you would expect this to happen to. But it turns out, it can happen to absolutely anyone. At some point during the relationship, Rachel took a significant and courageous step. She used Clare's Law, the domestic violence disclosure scheme, to formally request information from police about whether Worrall had a history of abusive behavior. He did. Police flagged his past. But Worrall had an answer for everything. He told her he was a changed man. He made excuses. He reassured her. And Rachel, like so many women in abusive relationships, believed him. I used Clare's Law to see if he had a history, which he did, she said, but he just reassured me he was a changed man and made excuses, but he convinced me. In March of last year, Rachel and Worrall went for a meal and drinks at their local pub in County Durham. It was an ordinary night. Nothing unusual. When they returned to his home, he put on a TV show about a strip club in Florida, somewhere he visited. Rachel made a comment. She said she didn't need to know what he got up to there. He called her childish. In a moment of levity, attempting to diffuse the tension, Rachel flicked some breast milk at him as a joke. I expected him to snap out of it and laugh it all off, she said. He didn't. He picked up a glass and threw it at her head. Then he threw a suitcase of clothes at her and told her to get out. He punched her in the jaw. His mother was in the house. She shouted down to stop it. Worrall told her to go back to bed, and she did. Rachel got out of the house as fast as she could. Rachel drove to her mother's house. She stopped at a petrol station on the way. The man behind the counter asked if she needed help. She kept going. When she arrived at her mother's doorstep, the Ring doorbell camera was recording. What it captured is harrowing. Rachel, soaked in blood, sobbing uncontrollably, desperately seeking help. That footage would later become a central part of the case against Worrall. Rachel was rushed to hospital. She needed 8 staples to the back of her head. Doctors suspected her jaw might have been fractured and ordered an X-ray. She was covered in bruises. I wasn't going to let him get away with this, she said. Worrall, meanwhile, was contacting her, telling her how sorry he was, promising he would change. It was too late for that. Worrall was charged and brought before Durham Crown Court. He pleaded guilty to Section 20 assault at the start of his trial. Rachel had been prepared to stand in the witness box and tell her story. She never got the chance, because he pleaded guilty before she could. On June 19th, judge passed sentence. 15 months in prison, suspended for 18 months. 180 hours of unpaid work. 25 hours of rehabilitation activity. A victim surcharge and prosecution costs. And a 5-year restraining order. Worrall walked out of court. He was cocky and hugging all his friends because he avoided jail, Rachel said. He has since returned to his job as an MOT tester, back to his old life, as Rachel described it. Rachel Bambrough is now receiving cognitive behavioral therapy and treatment for anxiety and depression. She is raising their 2-year-old son alone, alongside her 10-year-old son from a previous relationship. She has chosen to speak out, not for herself alone, but for every woman who might be sitting in a relationship right now, making the same excuses she once made, ignoring the same warning signs. Her message is clear and powerful. "I was the most outgoing, confident person you could meet," she said. "It turns out it can happen to absolutely anyone." She wants women to trust Clare's law, to take the warnings seriously, to not be convinced by a man who tells them he has changed. And she wants them to know, speaking out is not weakness, it is the bravest thing a person can do. Christopher Worrall bought a camera to trick a woman into trusting him. He spent 3 years convincing her he had changed, and then he threw a glass at her head and punched her in the jaw. He is picking up litter on community service. She is raising their son alone, in therapy, rebuilding a life he tried to destroy. Rachel Bambrough is still standing, and she wants you to know, if this is happening to you, you can stand too. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please contact the National Domestic Abuse Helpline on 0808 2000 247. It is free, confidential, and available 24 hours a day. If you found this report informative, please subscribe so you don't miss our next update.